Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. I am Marquay Baul. I'm the president of the board of directors for the Alzheimer's Diversity Outreach Services organization, and we are excited to be hosting our third roundtable discussion on the health disparities within the African American community and diverse populations. But before we get started, I'd be more than remiss to not say a huge thank you to Pastor Ray Owens, my good brother, and Brother Mert Huff, for actually letting us partner with them and hosting it right here in their beautiful, beautiful facility at the Met in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Metropolitan Baptist Church. I almost called it a university. Oh. They do some studying here. But we got a phenomenal topic that we're going to discuss today with these wonderful, beautiful individuals. Our focus today is going to be on the health and the lifespan of the next generation, our children, right? Yes. And I think that's probably an important topic because I think Whitney said it best. Our children are our future, right? But it is critical, but because we are in a unique position to help shape, right, the well-being, the physical and the mental and the emotional well-being of the next generation. So we've got a few important questions to unpack today.
All right.
And when we talk about disparities, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, they identified disparities as a preventable difference in violence, in health, in the mental assistance that individuals within socially disadvantaged groups receive, right? Those are the disparities, and we have to address those. And we know that studies and social observations has shown that the gap between what black individuals experience and white experiences are vastly different, right? As a matter of fact, they say blacks have a higher rate of diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure. As a matter of fact, it was said that black children have a 500% higher rate of death due to asthma than white children. My God, we've got a problem, right? That's huge. And so the first way to address anything is to actually identify what that thing is.
Right.
And so we've got two wonderful individuals today at the round table with us to help us unpack and identify what some of those individual deals are, if you will, that are plaguing our community. And so first we got Dr. Renaco Whitaker. This has been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful friend of ours for quite some time. She is a native of Seattle, Washington. And she went to the University of Clark Atlanta University. I apologize, I'm butchering that. So she is from Seattle, Washington. She is a proud graduate of Garfield High School. For the past 21 years, she's lived right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and has been practicing in the North Tulsa community since 2003.
Yes.
So after she graduated with honors, by the way, from Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia, with a degree in biology, she attended the University of California, San Francisco, UCSF, the School of Medicine. And then after she graduated there, she was accepted to the University of Oklahoma College of Medicine right here in Tulsa at the residency program in pediatrics. And after she finished that, she had the distinct honor of becoming a staff pediatrician at Morton Comprehensive Health Services, and she remained there till about 2012 until she answered the wonderful call of becoming the pediatrician and medical director of the Westview Medical Center's first ever pediatric clinic. And that Westview pediatric care, that is right here in our community in North Tulsa. Yes. And we appreciate the service that you have given our community, our community's kids, and the next generation of wonderful citizens here in Tulsa, and leaders, if you will. And then we have Miss Monique Huff. Now, Mrs. Monique Huff, she is a native of Suriname, South Africa.
South America.
That's what I said, South America. Okay? She thought I said South Africa. I said South America because we all originated from Africa. So that's why I said that, okay? But it was in South America. And she is a graduate of Victory Bible College and Northeastern State Universities, where she received a master's in early childhood education. And she serves as the Healthy Steps Specialist at the University of Oklahoma Schusterman Center. And she's worked many, many years in early childhood education and firmly believes in establishing a strong foundation for children through education, healthy living, and also spiritual rearing and open communication. So welcome to the table, my wonderful, wonderful sisters.
Thank you.
This is awesome. So we've got a lot in common, as different as our career paths has taken us, right?
Yes.
And I'll say that theme of commonality is what we have with children, right? You all's profession and your education has allowed you all to learn a lot more about what needs to take place in the development of a child. And in myself, I was born with chronic heart disease. I'd had open heart surgery, still deal with chronic heart disease to this day. So having had parents that had to be forced to deal with a child with needs and special needs and concerns, it was a really neat experiencing, seeing how patient they had to be and seeing how educated they needed to be and how much attention I needed in that particular field.
Right.
And so we all got that common theme of seeing that and experiencing it and having to deal with it and address it, right?
Right.
So one of the questions that I thought it would be good for us to unpack was, how do we as a community do a better job of protecting the health and the lifespan of our children? That's a huge, huge question, I know, but I think it's one that it would be good for us to begin our conversation. And I think that would be one that would be good for you to help us at least open up the discussion, if you will, because you are a pediatrician.
Right.
So what are some of those first steps that's important for us as a community to start helping our children?
Okay. So you stated correctly, that is a huge question. But as a pediatrician, I work with children, for their first 18 years of life.
Yeah.
So I see them from newborn all the way to age 18. So I can, see the changes, the growth, and the development. And that's a unique position to be in as a pediatrician, because you are essentially part of the family, So I think it really begins, and I think we were talking about this earlier, it starts at home, because parents are the first teachers.
Yeah.
Before they go to any formal schooling, parents are the first teachers.
Yeah.
And so parents have to, model those healthy behaviors, because the kids are watching everything that they do, they hear everything that you say. And so it's very important as parents to show them what that is. Now, the flip side is parents are a product of their upbringing and their backgrounds and their experiences. So they bring all of that to the experience of parenting. And unfortunately, there's no handbook on parenting. There's no guidebook. So you get it from, your parents and your grandparents. It's passed down from generation to generation. And I think it's important to talk within families. It's important to, talk about issues that may have been traumatic for the parents growing up, because that will affect how they go forward, in raising their children.
I think you bring up a good point, two good points. One, it reminds me of something my father used to say to us, and we talked about that just a while ago. He used to tell us that the first school is actually homeschool.
Yes.
So it starts at home.
Yes.
And then there's this concept that what we go through as children, it does affect what we're going to be doing and dealing with in our futures as adults.
Yes.
There is a huge connection there, right?
There is. And there's actually been, there's a lot of study into this. There's something called ACEs, or Adverse Childhood Experiences. So those are those traumatic experiences that someone can experience in childhood that not only just impacts their social, emotional behavior, but it also impacts their health as an adult. So you can have, you mentioned that you have, heart disease. So that was a congenital heart defect.
Right.
But we have heart disease such as, high blood pressure.
Right.
That can affect your heart. So that could actually not just be, a familiar genetic thing. That could actually be as a result of traumatic experiences you had in childhood.
That's
Because
true.
that traumatic stress or toxic stress actually changes your mind, the biology of your mind and body.
Right.
So it definitely impacts how what things you experience in childhood. And those ACEs, or those adverse childhood experiences, are things such as, did you experience domestic violence in the home? Did you have a parent that was incarcerated? Did you were you a child of divorce?
Right.
Did you have a parent that was a victim of substance abuse?
Yeah.
So it's a multitude of different things, but
Right.
they can definitely affect the child in that moment. But if not addressed early on,
There you go.
they can carry on with them later in life and even into adulthood.
I think that's the connection. You cannot address what you don't identify.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so we truly fail in certain areas because we don't have the right information.
Right.
Right? We fail because of lack of knowledge, a lack of right information. So that's critical that you say that. And Monique, you are a specialist at early childhood development. And so it's kind of interesting to hear a medical perspective of what they go through can play out in their physical body later in life.
Right.
What do you see takes place in the childhood development process in terms of how it manifests itself in their experience with other people, in schools and with their social settings?
Yes, so early childhood, basically you're laying that foundation. It's starting from the beginning. And how can we as a community help in that area is bringing awareness. Like you said, the information is important because you can see it for example, a child that started with an early Head Start program of great quality has greater results as far as academics in later in life. So you can see, hey, this, for example, when I taught in early Head Start, you can see the effects later in life of children who are going to school, maybe third grade. You see they're being successful. So that's the part of what I've seen in my experience. But as far as the part as what can we do as a community to help, I would say information, getting knowledge. Parents, just ask questions when you go to the doctor, when you work with your teachers or caregivers at the daycare, or people that have knowledge. Just ask questions, because that's when it starts. In my experience as a child, as a teacher and as a child development specialist, bringing that awareness to parents. They might have received information from their parents, like you said, already, and that's a major thing, because modeling comes in again there. But ask questions as parents and get those statistics, for example, get the methods that can help you prevent in the future.
Now, you use a term that's familiar in your world, and that's a term modeling. And that's a counseling term, and it's a psychology term. But let's unpack that. Let's make that real world. What modeling do we need to do, or what does modeling do to impact kids?
Simple example, let's say healthy eating. You
Yes.
tell your kids, eat your veggies, and you take a bite of your burger. So there's my kid there in the background. So I told him to go over there. I'm modeling sitting here, so he's trying to go here. So they listen, they hear what you're saying, but what you model, what you demonstrate, as simple as the burger, speaks way louder than what you say in.
So I'm gonna restate what you just said. And you just said something really key. Modeling is important. What you model is what they do. If you model eating burgers, that's what they do. It's not what you tell them to do, but it's what they see you do.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So, the old saying, actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And with children,
Yep.
they learn things through repetition.
Yes.
So if they see you doing something
Yes.
over and over again, they're
Yes.
definitely going to pick that up. And
Yes.
especially young children, because the program that Monique works in, Healthy Steps, they
Yes.
work with that 0
0
to
to
3.
3, yes.
Okay.
So
Yes.
it's particularly for toddlers, structure and repetition
Yes.
is key. So
Okay.
the more they see you doing something over and over again, they're going to pick it up. Now,
Yes.
that can be a good modeling behavior and
Or
as for
negative,
bad modeling
yes.
Right,
behavior.
right,
Yes.
right.
Because I see kids all the time.
Yep.
They'll be I'm in the exam room and I'm, talking to the parents
Yes.
and a child, they may blurt out something, it could be
Yeah.
a curse word or a bad word, or they could do something and then, the parent is, mortified, like, oh my gosh, what,
Yeah.
why did you say that? Where did that come from?
Where did
I'm
it come
thinking, well,
from? Yes.
They heard it.
they
You know where that
heard
came
it
from.
Yes.
somewhere. So whether it's, I tell parents this all the time, whether it's
Yes.
good behaviors or bad behaviors, whatever you are doing,
Yes.
if they see you do it often enough,
Yeah.
they are going to pick it
Yeah.
up. So if we can model those good behaviors,
Yes.
those, they will turn into, good habits.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's so
Routines,
simple, right?
It is. It sounds so
It's,
simple.
it sounds simple, and it actually is simple. It's just not easy at times.
Right, yes.
Because what that requires for us to do the work to get better,
Yes.
Yes.
right? It requires for us as adults or those who are in the environment or the space or are influential to these
Right.
children,
Right.
the culture, right?
Right.
Yes.
To do better,
Right.
to show better, so
Right.
that they can see better,
Right.
and they do better.
Correct.
Particularly, so help me understand this. What is the critical period of development? What's that critical time frame of development for a child?
At 0 to 3 years of age.
So is it?
from
I was
birth
always
to
under the
3
impression
years
there
of
was
age.
0 to maybe around 6 or 7. So is it 0 to 3? They're going to pick up all of their most important habits.
Yes, because
Wow.
80% of a child's brain is developed by the time that they're 3.
Yes.
You are kidding me.
Yes.
80%.
So you mean to tell me that this little 3-year-old who can't tell me that they hungry adequately and they can't use the restroom
Right.
on time,
Right.
that their brain is literally absorbing all of the information, the data that's being downloaded in its little brain.
Yes.
It just hasn't figured out how to process it,
Right.
but it is
Right.
downloading it.
Right.
Yes. So it's you're laying a foundation there. Those first 3 years is when you lay that foundation. So modeling during those 3 years and building strong relationships is going to make those strong brain connections
Wow.
be in place. Because, yep.
What role does the outside community, you have the community within the family structure, but what role does the outside community play in supporting what's either being done appropriately in the home or to help supplement what's not being done in the home?
Right. So that, and that comes into what relationships, other family relationships, friend relationships that the parents build. So you have, the generational relationships, and then you have your relationships with, other people in the community. So you
Yeah.
have your church community.
Yeah.
And then, once a child goes to school, that's, they're starting to spend time with people, from different backgrounds, different experiences. And so when they're exposed to, to those different environments, that's where it really starts to become tricky.
Okay.
And particularly when we're talking about African American children, we have to deal with racism. You have to, and that being one of the social determinants of health.
So
Right.
let's talk
Right,
about that.
right.
Let's unpack this. We've got one of those social determinants of health.
Yes,
So we could classify that as one of the barriers,
yes.
right, of
definitely.
actually improving the lifestyle of our children
Yes.
within our communities, right? So how do we effectively address that, right?
Right.
I know that's a loaded. I'm
Yes,
asking
yeah.
some loaded questions that we have absolutely not enough time to unpack. But I think it's important for us to at least broach or open the conversation,
Yeah.
right?
So, and that's it, is having conversations.
Yeah.
Because, racism, that's,
That term is
that's
so
huge.
deep,
And that's,
yeah.
that's
Deep-rooted.
institutionalized.
Right.
So that's not something that, is, going to change overnight. It hasn't
Right.
changed overnight.
Right.
So you have to have those, conversations with your children, even as young as, 5 and 6, because
Okay.
when I talk about they go to school and they are dealing with children, from different households, different cultures, religions, and other experiences.
Right.
And so even children as young as, 5 and 6 years old can experience, some form of racism. They
Yeah.
can be, teased about,
Right.
the color of their skin or way that their hair looks. And so
Right.
then they're coming home, confused and upset by what may have been, said to them at school. So then you've got to, sit down and have that conversation about, what are your, differences between
Right.
you and your classmate.
Right.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, and I agree with you, it's the support and the constant relationship building is important so that you can properly identify
Right.
what's going on. Because what is it fair to say, when these matters are not properly identified, they're going to manifest themselves in some kind of way in these kids,
Yes.
but then they're
Definitely.
going to be misdiagnosed,
They can be.
right?
Yes, they can
If
be.
it's not properly identified, it can go misdiagnosed, which means we're treating a symptom, but we're never getting to the root cause of the problem, right?
Right.
And then we're mistreating the symptoms.
Right.
We're giving aspirin to somebody who's coughing,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So,
Right.
so it seems like that is so critical for us as a community and as adults to be advocates
Definitely.
Oh, yes.
right?
Definitely.
Yes, yes.
for our children's and our child's experience when they're not in our care.
Right.
Right.
So true.
And so we can do that. And do we have to be family members to do that? Right? So what I mean, that doesn't have to be my kid to be an advocate
Correct.
Right. The
for
teacher can
for
do it,
kids.
yeah.
No,
Okay.
it does not.
The
you don't have
doctor, the teacher, anybody involved, like you said, their community that they have built in the church or sports, anybody who can speak up for the child, speak up. And one of those tools of communication, great books to read, like,
Yes.
and you can start early, like you said, 5, 4, 3 even sometimes, just starting early, or for the younger ones, different dolls, to play with your child and be engaged and build that, hey, I respect others and I am respected in that. Play with your child, and while you do that, you're building on the brain connections, the early
Right.
brain connections, because
My goodness.
you're building connections with your child. You're spending time, quality time. You're
It's funny you
engaging.
say that, because
Yeah.
one of the questions that I had, I thought would be good to even bring this all home, is how do we help improve the brain health of our kids? And you just said something really key, spending time and doing things that's going to create and strengthen the brain connections,
Yes.
like reading.
Yes, simple games, peekaboo, just when they're newborn, spending time with them, okay? The TV can wait. You're your child's favorite. You're your child's favorite toy, favorite person, favorite face to see, and if you spend that time there, you're building strong brain connections that will set them up for success later.
So let me ask you this, because you hitting on a hot topic. You talking about technology and TV and toy. Try taking that from a modern kid.
Yes.
You got World War V on your hands.
Yes.
And so am I to understand that the human interaction builds better brain connection
Yes.
than the technological interaction with the computer
Definitely.
screen?
Amen.
Definitely.
Okay.
And that's why, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no screen time for children under 2.
Wow.
Now, are children under 2 exposed to screens?
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
They're giving
Modeling.
it now. Matter of fact, the parents are modeling it, but
Modeling,
most
yep.
people actually give it as a modern day pacifier.
Yes.
Right.
Because, and I get it. I totally get it.
Right,
Because,
right.
just for a quick,
Yeah.
few minutes, if it will calm the child down,
Right.
Yeah.
okay. But I'm talking about, don't sit your, 5 and 6 month old. Don't just plop them in front of the
Right.
TV
Mm.
and, or
That's your caregiver.
or a tablet
Right.
like this. Don't just plop them in front of it
Right.
for 30 minutes to an hour.
Right.
Because and I tell my parents this of the patients when I see them is like, that's good. If they say, well, we do let them watch some educational, programs. Okay, but it still doesn't give the child that reciprocal feedback that
Yes.
you can give, because part of communication is not just verbal, but it's also the nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
particularly with infants, when you're talking to the baby, and you can see when you're talking to a baby that they'll smile or they'll
Yes.
giggle. So they're not only just going by what they hear,
Right.
the voices,
They're
but
replicating.
they're looking at your body language, your facial
Yes.
expressions.
Yes.
So
So true.
a tablet or a TV cannot give back those nonverbal cues
Right. Yeah.
that they can pick up
Yes.
on. So that's why we really don't want to, do too much screen time for the
Right.
children under 2. And even as they're older, we still recommend no more than 2 hours of screen time.
Right.
Yep.
Are they getting more than that? Yes, they are.
Yes, they
But
Yes.
the recommendation
Yes.
is no more than 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that the same thing goes, there's a lot to be learned from nonverbal communication.
Wow.
Right.
That is so empowering.
Yes.
That is so important, because I didn't know that. We know how important nonverbal communication is as adults, because I can say, how you doing? I can say, how you doing? Right?
Right.
Like,
And
the
then you're like,
nonverbal was the
right.
way I
Yes.
frowned, turned my head
Right.
down, the tone just shifted.
Right.
And so you're saying kids are picking that up and they're processing that at that age.
Early on.
Day one. Yeah.
Wow, that is
it.
So as much as we as collectively as parents, and all transparent, I don't have children. I've got 10 nieces and nephews that I've participated and played a role in their development.
Right.
But you're saying as much as parents are not given a rule book, if I'm taking from this conversation correctly, there is a roadmap though that could be laid out
Yes.
for us as parents and as guardians and as participants,
Right.
of a child's development.
Right.
There is a roadmap of some things that we could do, or some places or lanes we should probably avoid, right?
Yeah.
Taking to develop them and get them to where they really need to go.
Yes.
In terms of their development.
Yes, definitely. And that's why the Healthy Steps program, I have that in my office.
Yes.
So not only am I making contact with the family and, making sure the physical health is on track, the Healthy Steps program, the Healthy Steps worker that's in my office works in tandem with me and the family to make sure that their development is
Yeah.
intact. So
That's good.
they're meeting their developmental milestones. And, parents a lot of times will, compare their children to
Right,
to other
other
children.
kids.
And so, well, my neighbor's, son was doing this at that age, and, my child isn't. Well, every child, develops
Right.
at different
Own
rates.
pace, yep.
They don't have to achieve it at the same,
Okay.
exact time.
Right.
And so the Healthy Steps specialist is there to address those issues that, of those concerns. The parents, feel reassured that, okay, my child is developing, on track, they're developing normally. But then if there are some, red flags or concerns, we can address those
Yeah.
early on.
That's good. So it's important for parents and the community to connect with an office, maybe a pediatrician that has multiple disciplinaries,
Yes.
multiple disciplines, in there, where it's not only addressing just the physical, but the mental as well, right? And the
Right.
emotional also.
Yes,
And the
yes.
track and gauge, is it on track?
Yes.
Right? On par for their
Exactly.
development.
Yes.
That's good.
Exactly. Yes.
That's
So
really,
key.
really, really good.
So key. So yeah, like you said, there is a road map with certain points. You don't have to walk the same way, but
Right.
you have to reach the same points.
Yeah.
Like building strong relationships, having that serve and return that you could, like, between you and your child. Because it's a communication early on. Building in routines that we talked about. So those are easy, simple things to do. Try not to overwhelm yourself, but
Yeah.
do one thing at a time. and then go to the next.
That's good, though.
Yeah.
And that's why organizations like ADOS for this, but community organizations and churches like the Met, who put a lot of emphasis on early childhood development,
Yes.
and your organizations that put a lot of support and finances behind early
Yeah.
childhood development efforts, and in communities that have vast disparities, like the African American communities and other minority communities, because a part of that barrier is access to some of the things
Right.
that
Right.
we've discussed today, right?
Right.
Because what happens when a community doesn't have access to good health care, right? Or what happens when they don't have access to good mental care? And then what happens when they don't have access to good nutritional care,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like those things can be barriers in addition to some of the systemic racism that we see,
Right.
some of the health disparities that are more degenerative or passed down within a community. We have just the lack of access
Yes.
to good information and a good
Yes.
academics, right?
Right.
Yes. 'Cause
But
it-
when we have things like this, we are, we're getting the information out.
Yeah.
But I think you also, part of the lack of access is not really knowing where to access
That's so
Right.
true.
the information.
That's true.
Right.
So
That's true.
the information may be there, but you just have to know where to
Where,
get it.
yes.
That's good.
Because you can also access a lot of wrong information.
Yeah.
So you really just have to know where to access the
Yes.
correct information.
That's good. That's
Yes.
good. And speaking of that, we are doing this in an effort to collect and to be a resource to point individuals to the right place, right?
Right.
We're just traffic controlling right here.
Right. right, right.
Because in the end, this entire discussion really proves that old adage or African proverbs, it really takes a village
It does.
Yep.
to raise a child.
It does.
It really takes more than
Yes.
just one or two people. Although those one or two people that start in the home are critical, they're not only the first teachers, they're the greatest teachers, but they're not the only.
They're not the
Right.
only.
They're not the only. The buck
Correct.
doesn't stop there.
Exactly.
They lay the foundation, and then the community helps build the rest of the child up.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
But the type of foundation that's laid determines the sustainability of what's built on that child.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
Yes.
I think that's
Definitely.
fair. And so this has been, for me, a super dope conversation,
It has,
because I
yes.
love working with kids. We mentor a lot of young men, me and my father, just working with kids myself in the youth ministry, growing up in my church, having a passion of making sure I and we do our parts to their development.
Yes.
And having mentees to this day now in college, and
Wow.
seeing the
And
role
the
that I
modeling,
played
yes.
in their development, the modeling, right?
Yes.
It's
That's great.
critical.
Yeah.
So I appreciate this conversation. I
Oh.
appreciate you all taking your wonderful time that we don't have a lot of, and spending it with
No
us
problem.
this weekend, this evening. So on behalf of ADOS, of the Alzheimer's Diversity Outreach Service Organization, it's our hope that this topic on this discussion on this evening was helpful and beneficial to inspiring you to know better, and then taking that information and being demanding of yourselves to do better, because we truly play a collective role in helping rear the success of the next generation, and that's our children, right?
Yes.
So we encourage you to reach out to us, connect with us at alzoutreach.org. That's alzoutreach.org, and you can actually find all of our contact information there if you want to support us monetarily, as we do work around the country. We do free consultations to families around the country, from Portland, Oregon, all the way to New York and coming back to the middle of America. We are here to be a resource, and the work that we do is complimentary for those families that don't know where to go and where to start. So we do ask that if you are able and it's on your heart, to financially assist us in those particular efforts. You can find all that information online. You can even go to our Cash App as well. I think that's $ALZ Outreach. And then we do have a GoFundMe, et cetera. So We appreciate you taking your time out this weekend to hang out with us and be a part of the round table discussion. We don't have a red table yet, but we're going to work on us a color and get us a table color, and then we're going to call it that table color discussion like everybody else. But we appreciate you. God bless you all, and let's make it a point to know better so that we can do better. And also, we'd like for you to save the date. We have our virtual experience out of Africa 2022 happening next year in February 18th, 2022, 7:30 p.m. You can go to our website, find more. You can purchase tickets. Of course, if you was a part of it this year, you know we had some phenomenal individuals from B. Simone, from Myron Butler to Jalen Hurts to some Mike Bethany, the Bethany family. We had some phenomenal people join us last year, and for this year, for last year's effort. But 2022 is going to be more of the same. It's going to be phenomenal. So go to the website, find out more information about it, pick up your tickets, and we want to see you there. God bless.